One thing we don't talk about a lot at this level is comma rules, and there are 14, right? There are 14 very specific rules in the English language for when you must use a comma. And I say it that way because there's a lot of instances where there's just choice involved. The rules say when you must, they don't say when you should. And so I want to talk about one of those instances today and how commas can be used for clarity. Now, I'm going to give you a long introduction in terms of the name here, but this rule deals with introductory prepositional phrases. Introductory, when you're talking about grammatical rules, just means the beginning of a sentence. That's it. The introduction is the beginning of the sentence. So the rule says if you use two or more introductory prepositional phrases, you have to follow the last one with a comma. So if you have at the beginning of a sentence two or more or three or four prepositional phrases, the last one is followed by a comma. That is the rule. It can't be changed. You have to follow it, right? So here's an example. During the middle part of his speech. I have two prepositional phrases here. During the middle part, and then of his speech. Both of these phrases are called prepositional phrases because they begin with a preposition. During, in, of, around, about, that kind of thing. And here I have a second one, of. There are 34 prepositions in the English language. If you want to check to see if a word is a preposition, you can just look it up in the dictionary and it'll say next to it if it's a preposition. Some can double down, but we have 34. My 8th grade teacher used to say, Mrs. Densmore used to say, anything a squirrel can do to a tree. It's kind of a good mental guideline for it. But again, the rule says if I begin a sentence with two of these or more, then the last one has to have a comma after it. If I only have one at the beginning, the rule doesn't apply. So I don't have to have a comma here, and generally speaking, you don't. If I begin a sentence with just near the end, he talked about this, no, you don't interrupt the flow of your language, of the message with a comma. And that's one of the standard kind of touchstone editing choices you make is, am I interrupting myself too much with commas? If so, right, then I don't want to do that. But sometimes I can use a comma for clarity. Here, I begin with, in Act 3, Scene 2, Shakespeare discusses blah, blah, blah. So I begin with this prepositional phrase, right? And I use a comma here because it helps me distinguish between a proper noun, Act 3, Scene 2, and another proper noun, Shakespeare. And generally speaking, if you begin with just one prepositional phrase, but what follows is a name, you're going to go ahead and use a comma here for clarity's sake to separate that prepositional phrase from the name, from the proper noun. Here I don't have a proper noun, here I do, and that's usually the touchstone editing choice that you make.